bring in the inimitable Alaina Huffman to teach us the business of acting. This feels very Actors Studio. Hello, Alaina.
Hello.
What is your favorite swear
Inimitable.
word?
I love that. Thank you.
Inimitable, yes. There also, I don't think I've ever met an actress who is quite as this is going to be hard, chameleonic, able
Yeah.
to change. I don't think I've ever seen you look the same in every part. How?
Yeah. It's actually a joke like amongst our friends is like how often our friends get recognized and then I'm standing right there and they don't know that it's me from whatever given show.
You're
I know
too good of an actor, Alaina. This is
I don't know what it is. It's so crazy. Like, yeah, I'm grateful. I really, really am because it's a very, I don't know. I'm lucky, I guess.
well, no, you're also you have an ability to engross yourself in the character. You had some amazing, incredible experiences. You've played some really memorable roles. Do you want to just tell a little bit of your career sort of history? You don't have to go into your full CV, but like tell us about your journey in acting, maybe to start.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Well, hi everybody. I'm actually really excited to be here, and I feel like as a veteran in this business now, like oftentimes I'm on set and I'm one of the older people on set, and it's like a little bit of a rite of passage. I feel very precious about that role. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to sort of like see the new generation of filmmakers, actors, directors, young crew members coming up, and I'm just like, oh, it's so beautiful to see the evolution of our business and to have witnessed it for like 25 years. So, it by no means am I an expert, but I know some things, and yeah, I mean, 20 something years in my career. I'm known for a handful of characters. Anytime someone promotes me for an appearance or in my, bio, it's like three or four characters. Well, I've played dozens of characters,
Yeah.
and a lot of them are not recognizable or are not necessarily memorable to the general public. And that is the economy of an actor. And
Yeah.
so I really want to talk today about that, like being an economic actor and what that looks like and living authentically as an artist. I'm not on the cover of People magazine, but I've been able to maintain a career as an artist and raise my family on it for over 25 years. And I'm really grateful for that. So, yeah, I just want to talk about like how you can sort of create a life in that way.
Well, it's interesting too because I think as much as we could say there's luck, I know there's a Frank Capra quote or something that luck is opportunity meeting someone who's ready. And I feel like every time we chat, you're always preparing. You're always either in the process of developing, in the process of auditioning, in the process of going to set, and it's you are a prepared one. So what you could say, like you get lucky opportunity, but at the same time, you're ready. And so I feel like
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, my motto is stay ready. And that's just living your life, in accordance to what your ultimate goals are and letting it go and then being open to it might not be the thing that you thought it was. Like I had no idea I would have a career in genre. I just was open, and when the opportunities presented themselves, I was available. And it also sort of that other quote, like what's for you won't miss you, and
mm,
we'll get into that in a little bit. I have like nine kind of principles that I live by, and I want to share them with you guys. But it's just sort of letting go of an idea, of like a very myopic idea of what you want for your career, and just allowing what presents itself and being prepared to sort of like lean into it. That's the way I live.
yeah. I mean, and you've had these opportunities. What are those three or four characters that people always kind of know you for? Like, what is the most?
Definitely Abaddon, from Supernatural. The Black Canary is a big iconic character from Smallville.
Huge?
Um, I was on a huge franchise, Stargate Universe.
Yeah.
That was like my first sort of foray into like the world of genre. Um, yeah, those are pretty much the
Those are
main
yeah.
three. Yeah, yeah.
Those are each by themselves iconic names in and of themselves. They've changed cultural conversation. They are recognizable. But to your point, Black Canary and Abaddon, those are the same person. Is you throwing yourself into character, into the work, into like becoming who that version of who you think that person is. Um,
Yeah.
and it also again belies the work. So we're excited today. Remember, we've got the Q&A box open. You can ask questions for Alaina as we go. But yeah, I'm excited to dig into it and just let you do your thing. So I'll pop off, but you do your thing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I want to start with a little quiz. Um, and it's just some statistics, and I don't want it to be a deterrent for anybody, but I just want the reality of what our business provides so that I think sometimes people see, yes, pop quiz hot shots. I was going to say that, Charlie. Anyone name that movie? It's right here on my thing, pop quiz hot shot. Um, I was going to say, like, there's a reality of our business that I think people make up a version of our business in their heads. And then when it's not what you think it is, it can feel really heavy. And so I just want to provide clarity and, again, sort of living authentically your life to be available for opportunities as they come by based on the reality of what our business can look like. So here's our quiz. What is the average career length of an actor? Any guesses? 28 years. And the majority of the work is between 20 and 40 years old. So by this statistic, I will not work any longer. I am 44. But the best part about being an actor is you can work until you die. I mean, I look at people like Judi Dench or Samuel L. Jackson didn't start acting until in his 40s. James Gandolfini didn't start acting until in his 40s. So there are no real rules. It's just kind of a general. And the reason for that is I don't know if people find other career paths or just decide it's not for them or they don't like it. But that is the statistic. Majority of those who act and have success in it are successful within their first year. That again is not the Bible, but it is a statistic. What is the success rate of an actor? Meaning, can you sustain yourself as a working actor? Any guesses? 2%. 2%. And again, I do not say this as a deterrent. I say this as, and these are coming from the Screen Actors Guild website. I say this as a reality check. Because if you want to live your life as an artist, creating the art is the work. And if that means you supplement your income, there's no shame in that. And I think sometimes we feel like if you're not a millionaire, if you're not living in the Hollywood Hills or driving a Lamborghini, that you haven't made it. And it's just simply not true. So I took a directing course at New York Film Academy during COVID. I'm pursuing a career in directing. I have been for a long time. It's a very difficult career path to take as well. But one of the things, like the criticism I have about a lot of these like classes are they talk about Oliver Stone and Michael Bay, yet I've worked with pretty much unknown, not household name directors my whole career. And they make a very functional living and support a family and have beautiful, flourishing lives. So the reality is there's a working class, there's a journeyman artist in our business that I feel like we don't understand enough. And that's what I want to provide here today. What is the median income of a working actor? The range of that percentage, $6. $6 will get you to set. 51 to 75,000, with most making around $65,000 a year. So it's a very working wage. Now, I will say a lot of that is made within a few days. So you can have these big windfalls, and that's what's in our contracts, which I will get into later on. But you might make that in 10 days of the year. So that's a pretty big win. So what do you do with the rest of your time? It's really not a lot. I agree with you. It's a great revelation, right? So what do actors do when they're not working? Most of us are looking for a job. Last year, I had 75 auditions. I booked one job. I did a movie in Tahiti last year. I'm very grateful. It's called Waltzing with Brando. And I also had a character on Riverdale that I was thankful was a rebook from the previous year. I did 2 seasons of Riverdale and I did 4 episodes. So I made all of my money in about 18 days of work. So what do you do with your time? I thankfully am very busy. I have 4 children. They keep me busy. I drive and I do a lot of laundry, but there's so much room. So I don't love the term side hustle. I feel like you can have parallel interests, parallel careers. I pretty much model full time, especially since the strike last year. I've gone back to modeling, which I'm grateful. There's room for more mature models now. There wasn't 20 years ago. Um, that keeps me busy. Other people that I know, they do tech work, or I heard this one great story of a woman during the strike who I don't know, it's a parallel story, but she got a job at Starbucks when she first moved to Los Angeles 20 years ago. She's a pretty big stunt performer and she works on huge, huge movies, but she's never let go of her job at Starbucks and has sort of always had that. And when she goes away, they sort of give her time off. So I'm not saying everybody has to do that, but there's no shame in it. And I think that sometimes we have this vision: if I'm not booking a show and I'm not making millions of dollars, then I'm not successful. And it's just simply not true. So, all that said, if you still desire to pursue a career in acting, I have sort of 9 principles that I've gone over that I feel keep me, as Charlie was mentioning, sort of prepared and living authentically a life of an actor to be available when opportunities come up. And the first one is get a life. And I mean that in the most authentic way. Like, there's nothing worse than watching water boil or waiting for your actor phone to ring. Go out and live your life, get a great job, pursue other interests. I love doing seasonal sports. I horseback ride in the spring. I like to run in the fall. I surf in the summers. Just things that keep you prepared and busy and active, and whole. Because, at the end of the day, you go to work for 9 days a year. Who are you when you're not on set? You can get on a show like Supernatural, for example, and be one of 2 leads and work for 15 years. That would be crazy, right? That's almost never happens. We've all witnessed that with Supernatural, but for the most part, especially now, we're not seeing 22 and 23 episode shows anymore. We're seeing 8 to 10 episodes. We shoot those in 3 to 5 months, depending on the episode lengths. So even if you're fully and gainfully employed, you're only working 3 or 4 months of the year. Take classes. A lot of actors are consistently enrolled in acting classes. Use your discernment. Like, I would say, there's so many amazing available classes online. I just looked on YouTube this morning. There's tons of free ones. Doesn't mean they're all good, and doesn't mean they'll all resonate with you. But go through and watch a few of them and see, like, oh, I really like those points and that note. And, you can sift and you can borrow. You can go all the way method and study Meisner. It just depends on what works for you. And the only way you discover that is by exploring. Number 2, be local. Wherever you live. I started my career, I was living in Texas. I had immigrated. I was living in Germany, and then I had moved to Texas when I was 18. And I was modeling there, and I was going to college, and I didn't know, but they have a very robust independent film market. And my modeling agent sat me down one day and she says, there's more and more actors on the covers of magazines and less models. Would you have any interest in acting? And I was like, yeah, I did some theater when I was a kid. I actually started when I was about 12 years old. I did a bunch of background work. I grew up in Vancouver, and the only way I could work under 16 years old was to do background work in film. And I found it in the back of the paper when we used to get papers. And one or two, was that to the paper or to background work? Papers, exactly. Yeah, I read the
I remember
concept.
Backstage West was like, I'm gonna look in the back. I'm gonna find something I can do today. A Macy's commercial. I could be background. Let's go.
That's right. And you learn a lot if you want to. If you want to. I spent like, I would say an entire summer. My dad still laughs about it. He's like, I would drop you off. I made like $14 an hour, which was, I think, double minimum wage at the time. And I could work. I was only like 13 or 14 years old. And I worked on high school dramas. There was a couple high school dramas that shot in Vancouver, and they shot during the summer because then production didn't have to pay for teachers, and they could shoot longer hours. And so you learn a lot sitting on set all day. It's also very humbling. You're not
Very
treated
humbling.
great.
No, it's like, well, you are there to provide the ambiance of scenes, and so you're collected in, like, I remember the first ever sets I went on to like that were like uh bedazzled with
Oh,
Elizabeth Hurley, and I mean, it was, I got to walk the same set of pacing 40 times in San
yeah,
Francisco while Elizabeth Hurley is like literally yelling at someone.
yeah.
Uh, but you're
But
right,
that's so important. And this is the
super
thing is
important.
like, a movie without background performers is not a movie. A movie without a clerk that says, "Hey, where are you going?" is
Yeah,
not a movie.
yeah,
We need everybody, and there is a functional actor to place in those spots. And though you feel like you're not valued, you're so necessary. Like everybody needs you in that moment. So I think it's really important to understand like all aspects of the business in that way. Um, but yeah, so I learned a lot doing background performing, and then when years later my modeling agent asked me, I started going out for auditions, and I did a bunch of indie films. That's right, every actor is important. They are. You know, I had a director once say to me, he's like, if you're on my screen, you're the most important person in my movie. And I truly believe that. So when I don't feel great about what I'm doing, or when I don't feel like I don't feel value, not that anyone's devalued me, but if I don't feel that way, I sort of reflect on that message from him. Yeah, so stay local. And the other reason for being local is you can take Zoom acting classes online, which you should. I absolutely encourage you to see what YouTube has to offer. But there's nothing like in-person performing, because ultimately when you get on set or when you book a play, you are acting with other people. You're not sitting talking to your phone. And so it's really important to understand nuance and to feel people's emotions and to look in their eyes and to engage in their energy. So yeah, that's the real social media. So yeah, get involved locally. And the other benefit of that is you're going to meet other people in your community, like-minded people that are artists, and that's going to get you. I'm not going to teach you guys today to like go get headshots or how to take meetings or anything like that, because ultimately there's no one way to do it. And the best way to do it is to sort of be involved. And you're going to meet someone in your class and they're going to say, "Oh, I just shot these headshots." And you're going to find a cool photographer in town, and it kind of goes from there. So it's just really immersing yourself in the community. Which leads me to my next point: create, create, create. Never stop creating. And as Charlie was saying, like, being prepared is doing that, whether that means you're writing, whether that means you're actively, if you're actively auditioning, for example, 75 auditions last year, that can like really get to you if you don't change your perspective as this is the moment I get to be an actor. So I have a little story. It's not my story. A friend of mine shared this story with me, but he was going into an audition on the Paramount lot back when we went in person. And he was not feeling great. It was, multiple auditions into a career that he hadn't gotten any work in a while. And he walked in and there was his friend who was a very known actor. And he was like, "What am I doing here? You're clearly going to get the job." And, they were catching up. And this one guy says to the other guy, he's like, "How you been?" And my friend was like, I don't feel great. Like, I've just been pounding the pavement. It's not really working out for me. I don't know what I want to do. And the other guy's like, "Yeah, me too." And he goes, "Really? You like won a Tony Award and you're on these shows and blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "But I haven't had much activity. And today I get to be an actor. Today I got to get in my car. I got to create a character. I got to do what I love. We're not getting paid for it. We're not paying our bills with this money." There's no money. but the currency is an elevation, and you feel good, and you can feel positive in that moment. Or you can decide, oh, it's another opportunity that I'm not going to get, because most of the opportunities you don't win on. So you have to take the win elsewhere. And I look at it as it's another opportunity for me to learn where my strengths are and to learn things I don't want. It's also okay to say no. And we'll get to that when I talk about your value. But you really learn when you have all these auditions come through, you get really quick with learning processes. We're in this age of self-tape, and I don't know what the next generation of actor will look like. If you can spend 6 or 7 hours submitting a tape, you don't have that time on set. You get 3 takes, maybe. You have an 8-page day, you're shooting a 10-hour camera day or 12-hour camera day. Your time that you have with your character and your lines on your coverage is maybe 6 or 7 minutes. It's not a lot of time. So you've got to get really good at hitting your mark, at knowing your lines, at understanding your currency with you and your scene partners. You don't have 7 hours, which you do with self tapes. So it's been sort of an interesting revelation in our business, where some of these actors are coming in, they're big TikTok stars, and they've made like a name for themselves. And so all of a sudden they have value for production, but they don't have the experience. That's not necessarily bad. It's just where we're at culturally.
It's really interesting. The isolation, and because you've talked about local, you've talked about there are resources obviously virtually, but um, getting involved in like local theater or local uh, productions. Do you feel like it's important? Can you do that kind of group work virtually, or do you feel like it's also? I mean, you're going to be doing it in person unless they scan us and just take our identities away. But like,
They're working on that.
I know, but foreseeably, this is a business. It's a communal business where you're going to have to be with other people. Do
Yeah.
you feel like the isolation and self tape and like I'm going to do it here and I'm speaking to camera as an influencer or sort of creator, or is that sort of shifting how people are having to be directed?
It's interesting because like the commentary I get, and now keep in mind, the people who are in positions of power, directors, producers, they've all been coming up, right? So they're all in their 40s, 50s, 60s. So we're bridging the gap, right? And so I don't doubt that the business is always evolving. And so I don't doubt that it's going to just kind of be the way that it is. But for right now, while we're in this integration phase,
Yeah.
it's a little disruptive, I would say, because I think it's not as connective. And look, it has to evolve. Everything evolves. So that's okay. It's just a matter of what is the craft, and how does the artistry evolve to incorporate that part of it.
Which also, just to say thank you for a moment, mentoring. I remember when I was acting, like the concept of mentorship was important, but was sort of falling apart. Like people weren't mentoring each other who had been there. So what you're doing right now, for anyone watching this now or later, these are things that may not be taught anymore in the ways that they're being taught, that they were taught before, that made long-term actors, journeyman actors, people who survived off this, rather than I'm going to do a viral post where I do a thing and do a dance, or I like get an opinion out. That's a flare up, and then not a long tail. You're talking about like long term thinking here.
Yeah, thank you. Well, one of the my favorite things about what we do is, like, I subscribe as a mother. I subscribe to the Montessori philosophy of education. And her philosophy, all my kids went to Montessori's, and her philosophy is the broader the age gap, the better opportunities, because you create a natural form of mentorship when you have I remember one time my son was doing this 1,000 bead line. They have these tangibles, right? So um, he was doing a string of 1,000 beads. It took him 3 days in first grade. And his class was kindergarten through sixth grade. And the sixth graders were like, wow, it's really cool, Elijah. And they carefully stepped over his bead trail that took up the entire space of the classroom. And it just creates, like, where we're not segregated. I'm never going to work with 40-year-olds, right? So
Right.
when we have an opportunity to work together, I don't necessarily think the essence of mentorship has always been nurtured in our business. It's still been isolated, even before social media, where it's like you are focused on your career. But if you're working on a show where you have a kid and you have a grandparent all in the same scene, what a beautiful educational experience in life,
Hmm.
right? Like those bonds, you're so vulnerable with your emotions and with your your craft. It's very vulnerable to put your craft out there, and to have those as your teammates is beautiful. And it's family, but it's not family, so you create these beautiful lifelong bonds. They're so deep and so relevant. And then you get these conversations where you learn, like, we're also taught not to talk about money and not to talk about, yeah, Walker is a great example. There's so many great family shows, and you can talk to people about what it was like, what the contracts are like. We're not supposed to talk about money. We're not supposed to talk about negotiations. And I think that's wrong. And I
Mm.
understand, everyone's got to negotiate their own deal, but you also have to understand what's available to you. And I think we do have to share information.
Yeah.
So you have to be classy about it, but I do think it's important. So create, no matter what you're doing, whether that's, writing or collaborating with people. Now in this world of self tapes, does that mean you get to do it with your other actor friends? Gil McKinney and I used to live really close to each other. We used to do auditions together all the time, and we met on Supernatural. We discovered we lived next to, like, close to each other, and we were like, oh, let's do our auditions together. So just always being in a creative space. Number 4 is build your team. And again, this goes back to like being local. Like, ultimately, do you want to be with CAA? Yeah, I mean, everybody does. They just laid off 60 agents. But anyways, you have to. It's a wild time right now. I don't know what's going to happen. It's okay. It's all going to work out. It's just we're in a very interesting place. And this, I survived the '07 strike, and it was the same thing. So again, you have young people sort of entering into this business at this time. It's kind of the Wild West. The contracts are very different. We're in a transitional phase right now, but managing, creating your team. Ultimately, you want a manager and an agent, ultimately, eventually a publicist, or appearance agents, people who are, you add on to your team, stylists. You could just keep building out, but you're going to meet those people locally, and a lot of the people you start with you will end with, and ultimately it's about the best connection you have. So even if you get with the best agent at CAA, if you don't have a good connection with them, it's probably not going to benefit you. Relationships are so important, and so just honor and nurture those relationships.
You know, not to interject a story, but saw at UCLA, I went and saw Francis Coppola speak, and
Mm,
he had a really interesting about the build your team thing, because something that I think you has informed your career and who you are as a person, as a human being, is having a family. And
mhm.
um, a person asked the question in the audience, you had a family, you started a family really young in your career. Do you think that was a hindrance or uh, an advantage? And how did it affect your career? Um, do you ever think about that in terms of the team, like building the nucleus around you as well, of people that, for better or worse, like for the most maddening and most like blessed experiences, like you have all this work out here, but then you have this thing that's real that you come back to, that is real life. Um,
Mm.
how do you see that fitting into the team atmosphere of the world in which you orbit? Like, how has family affected that?
Thank you. So I love that, because that is a huge part of my identity as a person.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, I don't know if it's a hindrance or a benefit. It's
Yeah.
just been my life, and I can't estimate whether it hurt me or helped me. All I know is it's my reality. I do feel having a family has grounded me significantly, in ways that don't think I would have found if I didn't have them. And I've always said my family's a beautiful distraction from my career, and my career is a beautiful distraction from my life as a mother. For the
Totally.
most part, I'm a stay-at-home mom. Like, actually, as my kids are getting older, like my
Yeah.
older kids are 20 and 18. I'm like, what do
What are
I?
you gonna do?
I'm staying at this Airbnb with my sister, and this morning I was folding her laundry, and she's like, "You can't stop being a mom." I'm like, "It's fucking boring. I don't know what to do."
Like, what do you do when you're not managing? And you
Taking
have
care
four
of
kids. I mean, you have
people.
4 kids. Coppola said that it was an advantage for him that he said that creating a bubble of real life, for better or worse, when he got home, of non-fake bullshit and whatever else, those were people he knew were going to be who they were, no matter what, when, if he was doing well in the industry or not doing well in the industry. And it gave him a sense of responsibility that he said he wouldn't have had,
Yeah.
regardless. And I feel like that's
Yeah, it's
got
a
to
tether. It's a
put
tether
the food
to
on the
the
table. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And I always say my kids are my biggest cheerleaders and my loudest cheerleaders and my widest safety net. Because at the end of the day, I have so much purpose in being a mother. And I don't necessarily always feel like my career gives me purpose. I think there's moments of it, and I feel grateful when those moments present themselves. But at the end of the day, I have so much purpose as a mother, and it just really grounds me. So I'm grateful for that. Um, I would encourage everybody to do what I would discourage is waiting for the right time, because I don't believe that there is a right time. I think um I mean, maybe I was I wasn't a super young mom. I was like 23, 20. I just turned 24 when I had Elijah. Young enough that, like, you know, I probably couldn't have been on set 12, 15 hours a day, but also I could have, and I did, and I worked, and all of my kids had high chairs and cradles in my trailers at any given time. My kids have kind of grown up on set, which is so interesting because I've sort of become the momager of my daughter. She's acting and she's modeling, and I have this wealth of information to share with her, which is partly why I felt great about teaching this class. Is, oh God, if I had me when I was that age, like, just even the shared experiences is so powerful. And but one thing, there's a lot of talk about nepotism in our business, and that does exist. I'm not going to deny it. And then there's an element of privilege. And the one thing that I think the advantage of celebrities or working actors or musicians kids have is just the confidence of sort of the comfort. Like, it's not daunting to walk on set. And that's just their reality. And there's nothing that really can prepare you for that. I didn't have that, and I still made it. So it's accessible to people either way. It's just that I think of all the things that sort of were daunting and a little like overwhelming to me as a new performer. Those things my kids are like, oh yeah, there's Kelly from Crafty. She makes the best cookies. Like, it's just sort of their way of life, which is a huge blessing. Um, Sofia Coppola is a great director, and I really like her work. And so, to grow up in the Coppola family, and Nicolas Cage changed his name so he wouldn't feel like he was, using nepotism. But at the end of the day, you still have to make your own way. Um, when building your team, though, I will say I remember sitting in a very big agency. I won't name the agency, but I had just had my second daughter. So I was 26 because she was like 3 or 4 months old. And he said something like, "Oh, that's good. Good for you. Yeah, one of my actors wants to have a baby. I think I might let her next year." I was like, "Let her?" And I never followed up. Yeah, it was like, okay, I don't want to be with you. He was a huge agent, and I'm sure maybe my career would have been better. I don't know. The fact of the matter is that didn't resonate with me. And so ultimately, the biggest and best agent or manager or whatever, they still have to resonate with your principles and your ideals and things. Yeah, right. Puke face. So I don't know. Maybe he's changed his mind. I used to really crave like hectic energy. I used to want someone to hustle and work hard. And now I'm like, oh, that's so exhausting. you should meditate. Like, it's just maybe part of the life that I'm in. But I also think it's okay for my agent to have a life and for my agent to have goals and aspirations. But it's okay to ask them, what are their goals and aspirations? Do they want a long-term relationship with you? Do they see a career path for you? Or are they just trying to get you the next job? I can go get a job. We can all go get a job. Do you want to build a career? And, as we said at the beginning of this, like, I have these great characters. I look for characters. I don't want to just go do a day on a show. I want to build something. I want to be written for. I want to collaborate. Which gets me to number 5, know your worth. And they say the most powerful word in Hollywood is no. And this is not, a license to be an asshole, because nobody wants to work with an asshole. But I think that it's okay to understand intrinsically what your value is. I think initially, a contract or something comes on. Because we know why, Kristen, why you still work with Kristen too, Charlie. But I think it's okay and it's important to understand what you have as a career goal. And if, like, say, an audition or a character comes through and it doesn't resonate with you, it's okay to say no to it. And that's not taking for granted. That's just sort of honing in on the things that you will and will not do. Ultimately, when you sign on the dotted line, whatever that contract is, you've agreed to do that job. And if you've agreed to do that job, see what's happening right now too. And I really strongly want to discourage this. A lot of times a show shoots, say, in Atlanta, and you're self-taping in Minnesota, and you have a better shot of getting it if you're in Atlanta. So you're like, I'm in Atlanta. And then when they go to hire you, they're expecting you to be in Atlanta, and they're paying you as an Atlanta local. So it's $1,000 maybe for the day. Now you've got to get yourself there and pay for your hotel room. This is happening all over our industry. It is production's responsibility to take care of your travel. And if you don't allow them to, do you know your worth? Yeah, answer the poll. You have to ultimately be responsible for that. And can you still pay your bills after that? I don't know. Maybe sometimes it's worth the sacrifice. But for the most part, you have to honor where you're at. Part of our new negotiation in this contract, one big win we got out of the SAG negotiation, which I'm very proud of, is a relocation fee. A lot of times it's been happening the last several years, my whole career. If you get a job, say, in Canada, and you live in Los Angeles and you're a relocation, you have to go and take up a residency in another country. And yes, you're getting paid some significant money, but you have no idea if it's going to go 1 month, 6 months, 10 years, 15 years. And you're still having to hold down. I had kids in school in Los Angeles, and then I'd have to uproot them and bring them to Canada. And then you're paying rent or mortgages in both countries, on top of non-residency taxes, on top of agencies. And so the money really doesn't last. So before you say yes, you have to understand what you're agreeing to. And there's not a lot of guidance for that. Our contracts are set up to protect us in certain ways, but you still have to understand them. So if you're interested at all in being an actor, there's tons of resources on the Screen Actors Guild webpage. I implore you to go and devour the contracts, understand what they mean, understand the residual structure, understand we do have health insurance, we do have pensions, pay into your pension. I will get to that in number 8. But yeah, know your worth. And I want to also say this: saying no to something means it's available to somebody else. And I think that's a beautiful feeling of knowing, like, I could take this job because I need the money, or I could take this job because my agent gave it to me, and I don't want to say no to them because I don't want them to think I'm not grateful. But when you say no to something that doesn't resonate with you, share the wealth. You give it to the right person. And that's beautiful. And that's really, I think, living in abundance and knowing that the right thing will come to you and that the right person. For example, I went in on this job. I didn't actually particularly love it. And I went in on it, one of those things where I was like, well, it's a good opportunity. It didn't really resonate with me. I went in and I signed in, and a couple of my friends were on the sign-in sheet. Which also, by the way, I never see as competition. I always see if I see another like awesome actor on the call sheet, I'm like, yeah, I'm in the right room. So I always feel like, your circle is a reflection of you. And so there was this one person on the call sheet, and she ended up getting the job. And she's so proud of this job. And I watch her post about it, and I watch her promote this show. It's a big, big show. And I think to myself, I'm so proud of her, and I'm so grateful that she's the one who got the job, because I didn't really want it. And I wanted it, like I wanted the paycheck, but I didn't really want that job. And I'm so, so grateful that that person got that job. She deserves it, and she's killing it. Um, so yeah, that's a part of knowing your worth. Number 6, nurture your inner artist. And that goes back to create. This goes back to being local. But the part about it, I actually, a few years ago, I did a course. I'm a certified life coach. I don't practice it. I just sort of did it as an extension of my own personal need for therapy. But there's a lot of tools that I work with. And again, a lot of times you can be working and you can make enough money to live. And it's not even maybe a ton of money, but it's enough to live. What do you do with your time? What do you do with your head? What do you do with your heart? For me, like I said, I drive a lot, I cook a lot, I clean a lot, but I also have to nurture my inner artist. I love learning a new skill. I love journaling. I think it's really important. A lot of times you can be on these location shoots. For example, last year I did a movie in Tahiti, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's such a beautiful place to be, and I'm so grateful for the job. But I was alone, and I'm alone for a month. And a lot of times it can be very lonely on the road. You're traveling and you're doing what you love, and you're finally getting hired to do what you love. And then you're in Montreal for 6 weeks, and you've got tons of time off. Well, what do you do with all that time with yourself? You have to find these practices to honor and nurture yourself. And maybe that's reading, maybe that's escaping a little bit. But I know that it can be hard on a lot of people. So living your life on the road is something that you might want to prepare for, and just leaning into your hobbies and your interests, because it can be very isolating and alone. And there's only so much work you can do on the next day's work. So I would, managing the intangibles, the things that you can't control. You don't know. Especially now, you're not getting feedback on auditions, for example. And I don't mean I need a casting director across from me saying, wow, that was so good, you're a great actor. I mean, I felt their energy. We're not feeling that anymore. So how do you feed that part of your artist? For me, it looks like classes. It looks like engaging with friends. I have on my calendar every month, what books are you reading? What podcasts are you listening to? I like to make friends dates, girlfriends dates. I like to plan a trip that's a business focused trip, because I am so focused on my family. When I'm at home, I make a trip to be 2 or 3 days where I just hit meetings and collaborate with people. So nurturing your inner artist is interpersonal work, and it's very important. And that kind of goes with planning for dry spells, which also leads into financials, what I'll get into next. But again, there's these long spells of time where you're not working, and maybe you've made enough money, maybe you haven't. Maybe you have your parallel job or your parallel hustle, and you start a business. Now is the best time, I think, in the world to start something you can do virtual. We do see a lot of these influencers. I've yet to figure out how to make money in that way, but some people have, or they're just telling you they have. I don't know. But yeah, lean into other opportunities, whether that means, artists tour. I've been so grateful to be a part of a fandom that is embracing of us, and we tour all over the world. And that's been a tremendous opportunity for so many of us in between employments. It's also an opportunity to again feed energy from around the world. We make these shows in dark warehouses 8, 10, 15 months before you see it. In Supernatural's case, for example, we're meeting people that are like 15, 14 years old. Like we started, like the show has been around since you've been born. So it's really cool to like to share the experience of what shows mean to other people. Um, Number 8, what about the money? And I put it out to thank you. I genuinely have someone said, Louise said, we love to see y'all. And I want to thank you for that. Those of us who go on the road and who tour, we genuinely enjoy it. There's some people who don't. It can be overwhelming to have sort of that level of attention, but I find it incredibly nurturing. Yeah, Steel City's coming up if you're in Pittsburgh. Um, love going to all the cons. Good. I feel like I've had people meet at conventions in front of my table that met online and they're from different countries and they've met like in Chicago, and I get to witness them like connect in person after years of like connecting online, and it's such a beautiful experience all the way around, and I'm so proud to be a part of a culture that nurtures that. I encourage you to go to a convention. It's a lot of fun. I think sometimes like more than us being there, like it's a reason for, the fandom who's deeply connected to get together. Um, okay, good. All of you guys going to conventions. I love this.
It's, conventions are interesting too, having been behind the scenes and seeing how all of you know each other and talk and like discuss the industry, and like the water cooler of all of that of an office job is like so present at these conventions. I love it.
And particularly on a show like Supernatural,
Yeah,
I would say almost none of us have worked together on screen. Unless
that's
it's like side
wild.
projects,
That's
like a
wild.
few of us did Kings of Con, or Matt had a few people in his movie, but like we only know each other from
Yeah.
conventions. I met Ruth her very first convention, I think, and she's one of my best friends. Like it
In Naughty
just,
Pants. Yep.
yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, that the community and the collaborative aspect of that. But I have, several group chats with a bunch of actor friends, and I put out to actor friends like, what's one thing you wish someone would have told you before getting in this business? And they were like, what to do with my money? It's a big factor. And I will say,
Yeah.
everyone, the people who worry about money the most are usually the ones with the most of it, to be honest with you. So that's my experience.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah.
Well,
I think you're just hyper aware of it.
yeah, and I think there, SAG, the union sometimes does financial seminars and stuff because it is such a seasonal business. It's such a sort of catch as catch can sometimes. And so then it's like, how do I make this last? Where do I put my money for long-term planning? And like, it's hard to see outside of that. And I think we all know people outside of the acting industry that get a windfall and spend it on dumb shit. So, you know what I mean? Like it's real. What do you do with money to make sure that you're protected and the people around you are safe? And yeah.
Well, and especially as a new and young actor, I think when you start, like you think your team will deal with that. Like you think your agent, your manager, no, they're not gonna, they're dealing with it too. And so I don't want to offer financial advice. This is a disclaimer. I am not offering
Oh,
anyone
damn.
financial
Oh, wait,
advice.
hold on. What?
Yeah. Asterisk. Um, but what I will share some like tidbits. And I think the thing is that understand the contracts,
Yeah.
know what you can get. And then, if you go from working your parallel job, and you're making say 40 or $50,000 a year, and you get on a show and you're making $1 million, do you need to live on $1 million? I'm gonna guess no. So I would say graduate your lifestyle, and I don't think you have to go all the way in. And so, number one, a lot of actors don't account for taxes, and it can be like a big shock because if
Yeah.
you run your income through your corp, you're not taxed on it. So, because it's corporation, and I did see someone in the chat as an accountant, you can confirm this. So then you pay out your agents and your managers. Well, you're then left with a tax bill that if you didn't prepare for, you can be like, ugh, because it's not a traditional job that you're going to get your withholding. Now,
Yeah.
sometimes you are going to get a withholding, and it's going to be a huge withholding.
Yeah.
And if you don't file your taxes on time, because a lot of actors want to bury their head in the sand and not deal with money, get over it. It is part of the job. You are self-employed. Learn your money.
I mean, you're the
And
business, right? You are both the vacuum cleaner and the vacuum cleaner salesman. So you have to know how to operate yourself as the CEO of you, right?
yeah. And this is where we see in the headlines people that get into trouble. They don't want to learn it. It can be
Yeah.
overwhelming, but you can break it down. I mean, especially now. So I had my very first accountant when I was 19, put me on the S&P 500 and I got a stock index.
Nice.
So I have faithfully invested in the S&P since I was 19 years old. And you put away your IRA, little amounts.
Yep.
I think this year it's like 7,200 or 7,000, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's attainable for most careers. So then when you make this big money, if you've got a windfall and you can invest, great. There's never enough money and there's never a right time.
Yeah.
I would encourage people, like, don't wait for season two. If you are prepared and you've got good
Mhm.
credit and you've got some savings and you can buy a place, it's the best time because you're employed. So often we're unemployed. Um, Now don't blow all your money. So the way I do it, if I'm fortunate enough to have, a handful of episodes, I live off every fourth or fifth check, and everything else I put away. Because we are coming up on a year of unemployment now. And that's a reality of our business.
Yeah.
Or marry somebody who's not in the business.
Wait, what?
That may
Financial
be
advice:
helpful.
marry someone who's not in a volatile industry. That's a great call. I remember Michael J. Fox lived in his car and had the same beater car even while he's on Family Ties. And hearing this story stuck with me because it does underscore the point that rather than like consistency over a long term is a trend, not
Yeah.
like yes no on every single audition, because then you're tied to every audition. You're tied to the
Yes.
make or break of all of that all the time. And I think that's true in most of, like, anyone here just starting in acting or in another industry who is trying to take risks, or there's an industry that is if you can hit it, you hit it well and do and survive. uh if you don't think in that trend term rather than the tactical moment to moment, you're gonna burn yourself out and be really afraid.
Absolutely. And I learned that the episode, like living off, I learned it from a boyfriend of mine. You know him, Charlie.
Oh, of course.
Uh, he was a played professional sports, and
Oh
and
yeah.
that was the way he did it. He only lived on his first paycheck,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, that's so smart. And listen, you can do that in our business.
Yeah.
You might not be able to do that in a regular career on a biweekly check, but if you're making, say, $50,000 a check, or an episode or something, and you've got a guaranteed 10 of those a year, well, you can realistically live on
And
100 even if you're on TV.
there are other trades like this too. I mean, I know Kristen has some family who does like underwater welding and diving for like
Yeah,
construction purposes. You probably get paid a good deal of money to do something that dangerous and that sort of like risky. And I have friends who are professional roofers. Each job is a bit higher because you don't know when it'll come and when it'll go, and you need to then think about the seasonality of the entire trend rather than
real
one.
estate real estate's another big one.
Yeah,
and I,
exactly.
and I think real estate kind of parallels our business because it's very image based. So
Yes.
so realtors are sort of a career that's really known for these like highs and lows and like
Yeah.
blowing all their money, because you want to show up in your nice car to sell these people a house, but like if you're not making enough money to sustain it, um again, there's just no shame. And you don't have I don't subscribe to like the broke artist. I'm
Yeah.
not a starving artist idealist. I am a let's be economical with our money. And that means like I don't like not being able, like I don't like going to the grocery store and not knowing if I can feed my kids. That's not a great feeling. And I've been there. I've been a very young broke mother.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, okay, I can make this last. So it's learning what that means.
Yeah.
And then if you're in a position and you're a little later in your career, and you've invested well and you've taken care of, you're responsible with your money, well, then you can have little fun things. So I treat myself every
Yeah.
paycheck that I get. I do. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna, get a new pair of shoes, or I'm gonna, for example, another thing I do, it's built into our contracts. that we get business or first class flights. I always take the cash, always, because I'm not a very big person. So I'm like, well, I don't need to fly first class. Yes, it feels great. I like warm
Yeah.
nuts, all of them. And then, and like warm. Sorry.
Alaina, I
So
swear to God.
immature.
We
Grow
went
up.
we went like an hour before this started. I'm so proud of you. So proud of you.
Grow up. Okay.
No, you
Um,
grow up. God damn it. What?
but like, I feel like I take the cash because
Yeah.
also at this stage in my career, I've built up a lot of points. So I'll take the cash and I'll fly somewhere on points, and I might be able to fly first class on points. Sometimes I do, and the flight cost me $5.60 on American Airlines. So
You're in a
these are the
piece of
tricks.
luggage underneath the plane. It's great.
I
It's really
package
good.
myself and ship myself by FedEx. No,
Did
but
you say
like
ship?
there's
Did you say
ways.
ship yourself?
Yeah, with
Did you
FedEx.
say
Do you
ship?
remember like ship?
Oh, sorry. I thought I heard something else. That's fine.
This show is going on too long. That's the
No,
problem.
you're doing great. We're at
Uh,
number 8, and you've just now only done one entendre, and I'm so. It's like you're all grown up, and you're all grown up.
We've not got off the rails. Let us get back on. Watch, watch,
Okay,
watch.
sorry.
We got this. We are professionals.
Yep.
So yeah, that's my little trick. And like to me, like it just makes more sense. And that the way that started, actually, I had lunch with a producer friend of mine, a movie I did in Turkey nearly 20 years ago. I remember flying business class and I was like 25 years old. And I was like, this flight is so expensive.
Yeah.
Like to fly first class to Turkey, I was like, I could have so much more money if I just took the cash.
Yeah.
And I genuinely thought that. Now, listen, there are some of my actor friends who are like, yeah, but you got to get off the plane and go to work. You should be
And get
rested.
right into it. Yes, totally.
So fair enough. If that's what you
100%.
need and that's part of your process, for me, I need money in my bank.
Yeah.
So
You're okay
feel
with being put with the yaks in the weird steerage in the ship as opposed to
I
being
like
first
the
class.
emotional
Good.
support parrot next to me.
Yep. Good. Take the cash.
I don't always do it, but I also know that that's an availability, and that really stemmed from the fact that I was like, production is going to give you 2 first class tickets, and I'm like, but I have a family of 6. Can I get coach tickets?
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of learned. And they're like, yeah, you can take a buyout. And I was like, oh, great. And it just enabled me to be a much more present mother because I could afford to fly home on the weekends, and it didn't
Yeah.
come out of my
Give you more
paycheck. It
resources.
came out of a different pocket,
Mm.
and it just made a lot more sense to me. Same thing with per diem. We get per diem when we go to work. Well, I don't need to eat. I think it's like $28 a meal or something. I don't know about you, but I like Chipotle. I can eat a Chipotle bowl. That's
All right.
$12.
No, that's fine. If you want to do that, it's fine.
If you need sugarfish, go right ahead.
No,
But
yes.
yeah. The point is like you can make anything work. You can decide like this is free money. I get $400 of per diem. I decide that I eat a little bit cheaper and I get a brand new pair of jeans.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a win for me. But
And
yeah,
that kind of
it's
goes into know
however
your
you want to
worth as
manage
well,
it.
though, right? Like knowing your worth also means knowing what your values are. Like if you are someone who wants more resource and is able to negotiate something, whether you're an actor or in another industry where they're paying for various parts of the services, you know what are the must haves. Like the what was it on the Bear just recently? It was like these are like these are the non-breakable, you cannot break these
Non-negotiables. Yeah.
non-negotiables, and it's like that's
Yeah.
it, and you know what those are for you. It's negotiable how you fly, but maybe the quality of the food or where you're sleeping at night is not negotiable, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sidewalk, sleeping
I'm
bag.
sorry.
As long as they're paying, I will take the
Well,
W
hey,
and
let's
the
not,
tough.
that did not, the phrasing of that. Okay, so we've done 8, and we're so close,
There. We're
everybody.
almost there.
Everyone's hung in there. We're all here. Chat, are you here? Just sound
Yeah.
off.
Did you guys dip out?
No, they're all
Okay.
here. They're all watching
Okay,
you
good.
talk
Because I
about.
have another point to make.
Okay,
Number
one
9.
more.
Okay, one more. This one's really important.
Yeah.
Stay curious, watch, learn, grow. Never stop educating yourself, and it goes back into being prepared. And so, a few years ago, I was like on a binge of reading biographies and autobiographies, and there's so much relatability, just like this class.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I don't know how many actors are going to come on here and tell you, like, I don't fly first class. So I'm telling you, a lot of us do that because we're like, oh, it's extra money. But I think it's really important. Like Amy Poehler actually has a great class on Masterclass. I just watched it on the plane. If
Yeah.
you haven't seen it, it's on improv and it's great and it's very good life lessons. I read like Michelle Obama, Tina Fey, Rick Ross, very contrasting careers.
Yeah.
And still there's a through line of knowing your worth, understanding your place, taking space. I'd say continue to educate, know what's going on in the business, Backstage West, Variety, follow film studios, follow all of these, the Hollywood Reporter, Backstage West, Variety, follow all of their social medias, know what's going on in the business, follow your favorite film studios. I love A24. I will watch what's going on. My daughter has a movie coming out on A24, Heretic, just a little plug. But yeah, like know what's going on, know who the players are. And I don't just mean the Jennifer Anistons of the world, like know the writers, know what their deals are, where they're going, what shows they're creating. It's your business. You should know that. You're going to get it on your breakdown when you get your audition, and you're going to be like, oh, damn, they did that show and that show and that show. And that's not to intimidate you. That's to understand who you're working with and to be prepared, you know?
Yeah.
And one thing I actually kind of forgot to mention, I'm done with all my points, but this kind of encompasses a few of them, but mainly know your worth. Understand the value that you bring. And again, not to be arrogant, but like you have a say. I remember I have a story one time. I got a note from a director. Now, WGA rules, as the Writers Guild, the writers aren't allowed to give you a note. They have to give the note to the director, and the director directs performance. In television, writers are kings. On movies, the directors are really the kings. But it's almost kind of rare that you'll get some direction, performance direction on television, because the directors are guest stars. They're coming in, they want to do the best job so they get hired again. And they will give performance notes, but probably only when it's really necessary. And again, they've got the writer right behind them. So anything that's performance based is usually coming from a writer's note. So I got this note one time and I challenged it. And I walked over to the writer and I was like, well, I just feel like this, this, and this. And he got this big smile on his face. And I was like, what? I'm serious. It was a little like, and he goes, I'm so proud of you. Thank you for protecting your character. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was just like affirming to me that my voice matters.
Right.
I'm not lucky. I got hired because I did the best job. I earned my place here.
Wow.
And one of my favorite books, if you haven't read it, is Shonda Rhimes' book, My Year of Yes. And she talks about the writer, the character, and the actor as being in this throuple. And they all sort of inspire each other. And I've witnessed that over and over again in my career, where you show up with what's on the page, and that influences what the writer writes, which influences who the character is, which influences you. And it's this really beautiful collaborative sort of jam session that's happening in real time. And to be a part of that is truly, I think, the embodiment of being an artist.
I love that. And it's interesting, the curiosity piece. I remember to throw another thing in here, but I think it's exactly what you're saying and confirms what you're saying. I was talking to Vincent D'Onofrio one time, and I was like, when was the last time you were like embarrassed as an actor? He's
Mm.
like, oh, I know it exactly. I know exactly the moment. And this is the last time I was embarrassed as an actor. And I was like, what was it? And he's like, Men in Black. And I was like, what do you mean? He said he came in, he had made all these choices. He was going to be like George Patton meets this other thing, meets a bug, meets a whatever. And he comes in first day of filming to Barry Sonnenfeld. And he does this like, go, whatever, all that stuff. And Barry stopped set, told everyone to leave for like 30. And they had to have a conversation about the choice. And he was like, oh, fuck. And because he was afraid, like D'Onofrio was like, I don't know if this is right. I have all this stuff going on. And Barry Sonnenfeld basically said, what are you doing? And he's like, I think it's this and this is what I think it is. And it was from a place of curiousness, but also like he finally just let go of the fear of it. And I feel like there's something in what
Yes.
you're saying where he's like, okay, let's
Commitment.
do it. It's commitment. And it's that curiosity
Commitment.
can help pull you out of that fear that you're talking about because you're so
Yeah, and it's
interested that you're moving out of it.
yeah, no, I love that. And Amy Poehler talks about that in her master class. Like you can't be in or out. It's like dating currently. If you're dating, like everybody's like, oh, I
That's our
don't
next
know.
class, dating with Alaina Huffman. We're going to do next
I
time.
have some really good stories.
Oh,
But
man.
but yeah, it's like it's this sort of like half in, half out, and it's not a safe feeling.
Yeah.
And so you want to go all the way in. And that might mean you're embarrassed. I remember actually being on Supernatural, and there's a place where my character gets lit on fire. Um I'm like, what? It's scripted, right? It's on the paper, and you have to ground it and bring it to life and make it watchable. And so I remember like I'm like, okay, so I'm like flailing. And Phil Segrisha, God love him, he directed that episode and he's like, go for it, just go for it, just go bigger, harder. Yep, do it, go. And you just commit to it and it's done.
Yeah.
But if you hum and high, you're gonna have to do 7 takes and they'll be like, she don't got it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so it's really like going in. They can always say, it didn't work, let's try it this way.
Yeah.
But if you're not, and they've got to pull it out of you, you're not showing up authentically, you're not committing, you're not in, and that leaves everybody going like, what are we doing here? Go big or go home. That
That's
is
it.
correct.
That's it. And that is the slogan of this class, which is go big or go home, obviously. Boom. Yes. So I've got number one, get a life. Number two, be local. Number three, create, create, create. Number four, build your team. Number five, know your worth. Number six, nurture your inner artist. Number seven
Mm-hmm.
was what again? I wrote down Farfagnugan. I don't know what that means. What was it?
Farfanugan.
Farfagnugan? No, I don't think that's it. Farfagnugan?
Number seven,
Yeah,
uh, manage the intangibles.
got it. Yes. And then you've got number eight, what about the money? And nine, stay curious.
Stay curious, watch, learn, grow.
That's 17 items, but we'll allow it. Great. That's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like that's my whole career.
No, this is the most candid discussion of the business of acting, literally the title of this, that I've ever heard anyone say in a public forum.
Oh, thank you.
Literally, like these are conversations I've had with people individually where like, I think this about how I invest, or I think this about networking, or I think this about preparation, but I don't think I've ever heard anyone say all of it in one go in this way. So legit.
Thank you. I feel like it's I started a podcast during COVID because everybody did. And and it was called Craft Service, which is, where we go and get our
Genius.
snacks. It's our
Genius.
water. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's our water cooler. I did it with my friend Malik Yoba, who's also an actor.
Great
And the
actor.
reason it came about is we were like, how many times are you like interviewed? And it's like they read your bio and they ask you,
Nothing.
uh, so you went to school here? Like
Yeah.
you don't ever get these candid conversations. And maybe people are proud, or maybe I don't know why people don't share more, but um I just feel like if we have shared experiences, it just enriches all of our lives. So
Well, I hope everyone here, whether you're in the acting profession or not, like you take some of this to heart, because these are 9 items that honestly, I mean, you could write a book off of this. This is legit. And
next
everybody's in the
next
chat saying they
parallel
love it.
hustle.
So, yeah,
Thank
and from such openness. So thank you, Alaina. Thank you for sharing your heart and experience. Really appreciate it. And
thank
thank you all for
you.
being here. You're so rad and supporting PS Arts, which is an amazing organization in LA,
Yeah,
helping
we
to
didn't
bring
talk about
arts.
that.
Well,
Yeah,
just
thank
as a
you.
recap, it's bringing arts programs to schools that have no art program, have no cash, have nothing, and you're literally giving this to kids who would never touch art. So it's phenomenal. And if you want to look into it, they have some great fundraisers, and Beautiful stuff. And yeah, whether you're a writer, a director in any communal art form or any communal space like this, these are all great tips. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And thank you guys for your curiosity and interest and yeah, and just I always like just a little bit of encouragement is I was having lunch not too long ago with a girlfriend of mine who got a star on the Walk of Fame, and I was
Awesome.
like, wow, did you ever imagine this would happen? And she's like, part of the reason I think I keep getting hired is because I just didn't quit. And sometimes that's
So
what it
true.
is. Like,
Yeah.
you can I just feel like there's so many times in my career where I'm like, what am I doing? And then I'm like, well, what am I not doing? Like I could play a grandmother at a certain point. I could play a witch. Um, the opportunities are endless. They're not necessarily again going to be the lead of a movie where I'm making millions of dollars, but like I can live my entire life in a state of creativity, and I am feel incredibly blessed for that. That's my journey in life, and I'm grateful for it.
What a what a I think it's a more noble goal than to try to become the millionaire on the front of the page, right? Like that's to be a part of
Yeah.
the story and be creative for the rest of your life is the goal. That's so awesome.
Yeah, that's my goal. I also want
Well,
a lot of money though.
no, money is important and good. No, we're not saying it's not important. Let's just make sure that manifestation language is very clear.
I have my little S&P. Yeah, I got my
Yep.
pension.
The FANG
That's the other
account.
thing. Like there is like I didn't really touch on it, but we do have a pension. Like that was my dad's first thing. He's like, "How are you
Yeah.
gonna ever retire?" And I was like, "Well, we have a pension." He's like, "You do?" So like we're
Yeah.
an organized business. Like it's
Yeah.
a legit thing. So yeah.
Well,
Anyway.
stay tuned for Elena's next class. Why? What are you dating with Elena? Whatever.
What are you dating? Not who.
No.
What?
What are you dating? Yeah, pass the expiration dating with with Elena. Um, Thank you all for
Instead of
spending this
dating in
Saturday.
your 40s.
Yes. There's a whole, I mean, that would be such an amazing experience to just have people come in and tell their like worst dating stories and just like
Do you
just
remember that Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, like the fuckable years? Sorry. It's
I
really
love
good.
I love that the longer we go, the more it's like,
Yeah, it gets worse. It
the
gets worse.
more
You guys should
nuts are the
go.
best part of the plane ride. You're like, what? Anyway, this is the
Anyway.
podcast.
Okay. Well, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And yeah.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. Have a great Saturday.
Bye guys.